Orlando Health's medical excellence, we impact the lives of those we serve. But it all starts right here in the Fortress. So game on.
All right, welcome everybody. And no, it's not the Friday night fights. If everybody could please take their seat, we're going to get started now. And I would love to welcome everybody here to Full Sail University. Thanks to the folks at Full Sail. They always do such a great job. If we were to recreate this event and this environment in a hotel ballroom, we would probably be broke. So we really appreciate you, the use of your staff, your students, your facilities. So thanks again. The other people I'd like to thank right now that I'm sure you guys will all join me in giving a hand to are our caterers from Arthur's. Thank you for doing a great job for the third straight year here. And of course, I want to thank our sponsors, and there's so many of them, I'm not going to try to name them all, but if you look at these 6 TV monitors up here, they rotate through constantly, so make sure you keep looking at those at your leisure and be sure to thank those folks when you see them. My role here is to welcome you, which I've done. We only do 5 major events a year at NCS. There are so many events that go on in our industry. We made a decision a few years ago to focus on 5 events and make them all good and make them all support our mission. So part of our mission is tech transfer. Another part of our mission is supporting our members. This event, as you will see from this outstanding panel we have, accomplishes both of those. I will say that I've probably either been on or seen hundreds of panels in my lifetime, in my career. This one I'm truly excited about. So buckle up and get ready for that. And to get things started, I want to introduce our chair of our board from Aptima Corporation, Janet Spruill.
Thank you. All right, thank you, George. So I'm really excited about this evening, and I can't tell you how proud I am to be part of the National Center for Simulation. I've been involved in NCS for the past 8 years, and have moved up through the executive committee leadership chain, and really pleased to be the chair of the board. But over those 8 years, I have seen such an incredible impact that this organization has made. It's not just about putting on events. It's really about advocating for our membership. And if you're not a member yet, I would really strongly urge you to consider joining the ranks. There is so much that goes on the scene and behind the scenes, advocating for you and your organizations in the defense industrial base and beyond, advocating up in Tallahassee on a regular basis, advocating on Capitol Hill, protecting the assets that are here that allow our companies to grow. And so I'm really excited about the theme this year for our Business to Business, which has been recast as the MS&T Connect event. The theme of MS&T from combat to cosmos to epic entertainment. And what I want to stress to you is that what you'll hear tonight is more than just each of these sectors where MS&T is making such a huge impact, but the across the industry, the cross-pollination that's become so synergistic and allowed defense to borrow from entertainment and likewise to really accelerate. And that's really what we're all about. And so we are a strong organization, and you, our memberships, are what our members are what make us strong. And so I just join you, ask you to make your voice heard, get involved, and thank you all for participating in this event. And it's really exciting to be here at Full Sail. How many of you took the tours? Super, super impressive, right? Yeah. And so it makes sense to be here at Full Sail, and it also makes sense that I have the honor of introducing a real champion and a real advocate for MS&T, Dr. Haifa Mamar. Yeah, sure. Dr. Mamar serves as the Executive Director of Emerging Technologies here at Full Sail. And what's behind that is she is really leading the way for developing and guiding the programs that are shaping our next generation of talent in modeling, simulation, AI, cyber, visualization, all of the key areas that are so important. Dr. Mamar is also a really important voice in the National Center for Simulation as one of our board of directors members, and helps to ensure collaboration across academia, government, industry, and commerce and technology. So it is my great honor to welcome to the stage, after we run a short video, Dr. Mamar.
That people with passion can change the world for the better. That's what we believe.
For the past 45 years, we've pioneered a style of education that has consistently challenged the status quo. Early on, it was considered rebellious and alternative. Now, creative students from around the world are drawn to Full Sail University. They come here to take part in what we call real-world education. They come to learn from instructors with years of industry experience, and they come to work on the same type of equipment and in facilities that are found throughout the world of entertainment and technology.
This school, I don't think would have took place 50 years ago. This school is really a one of a kind. You are truly 21st century.
You guys represent so many positive things. What you guys do, the school pride, the giving back, you feel it. In every hallway, you feel the family bond. It's actually real here.
I think that a lot of things that I'm concerned about and interested in are exemplified by the work that I've seen going on here at Full Sail. It's what I applaud so much. That for the future, we have to focus systematically on developing imagination.
When you're here, even if you're online, you're part of a family, and that's what Full Sail is, and I realized that quickly. If this is what you want to do for a career, and if you're serious about this, we're serious about you.
Today, over 100,000 graduates have left their indelible mark as leaders shaping pop culture and technology for the world. As a result, Full Sail has earned a reputation as a leader in education, while also building relationships with some of the biggest entertainment and technology brands in the world. Which in turn has created extraordinary opportunities for our students to gain experience on a range of real-world projects. We are Full Sail University, headquartered from our campus in Orlando, Florida, and after 45 years, we're still guided by a simple but powerful promise for our students. If you're serious about your dream, we'll take your dream seriously.
Please Please welcome Dr. Haifa Mamar.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Full Sail University. My name is Dr. Haifa Mamar. I'm the Executive Director of Emerging Technologies here at Full Sail and on the Board of Directors for the NCS. I'm so happy to have you all here with us tonight. So I hope you're going to enjoy the panel. I'm looking forward to hearing the answers, the questions, and how the conversation is going to go. So for those of you who don't know Full Sail, we are a University of Entertainment, Media, and Emerging Technologies. We have programs in computer science, AI, data science, machine learning, IT, cybersecurity, web development, and so on, and UX, simulation engineering, the gaming programs, all of those are emerging tech. And on the entertainment media, it's the film programs, the audio programs, the music production, the business programs, a variety of different programs here at Full Sail. And we're always, our DNA here at Full Sail, our education system is real-world education. We want our students to work on, real-world projects, so real projects, so we value partnerships with companies. That's why you've seen in the video, there are so many different partnerships that we have, and everything that we do, we want those partnerships, it's good for the companies because they get to have some projects or low-hanging fruits, projects, features done for them, and we get to have our students involved. They get that real-world experience, and that's what we're looking for. Everything we do is for our students to help them go into the industry and secure the job of their dreams. So if you have any questions about partnerships, feel free to contact me or anyone from the Full Sail team here. The table is here, everyone Full Sail people. So you can show. Feel free to reach out to us, come talk to us. We're here to answer any questions that you have about partnerships. Neil asked me to talk specifically about the new project that we have across the street. We actually are building the Full Sail University Dream Loft. It's our residence project, so dorms. So we have the first phase of the project will open early 2028. I want to make sure that I say the right stuff. So it's projected to be completed in the first quarter of 2028. It's a planned 5-story building. It will have a unit count consisting of 180 units, 576 beds in the first phase. It's a modern and fully furnished living option ranging from 1 to 4 bedroom. And then additional phases are planned for future construction for a total of 1,800 beds. We will be having a walkway bridge from the site by Costco to here to Full Sail University so that we can have our students cross without them necessarily crossing University Boulevard. So I hope you guys enjoy the panel tonight and all the conversations we're going to have. Welcome again to Full Sail University. Thank you.
Flirting with disaster, Molly Hatchet. Well done, Noah. Well done. How'd you ever think of that? I have no idea. Haifa, if we rent, do we get a discount to Costco? Is there a 10% discount? I feel my wife would want to be in there. Okay. Very good. Very good. Hey, welcome everybody. Janet, that was a great job. That was the best commercial for the National Center for Simulation. Janet, as you already know, is the chair of our board, and she has 15 more months about on the reins. And then Miss Carly Modko from Carly Corporation will take over for the next 2 years. So George and I are in really, really good hands. So you saw the Full Sail video, and so you went on the tours. So this is just an incredible asset. We are so lucky, thankful, and grateful that we get one night here to do this. And the team at Full Sail is just amazing. So if your companies, your organizations aren't looking at Full Sail to team, to partner with, even just to come out to some of the events to get inspired. Yesterday I met the AC/DC band that was here, the tribute band. That was pretty cool for me. And so a lot of stuff goes on here, and I just want to thank Noah, the incredible Noah. He's the director of everything going on tonight. And Summer, raise your hand, say aye. There's Summer Operations. If you want to know about the DNA of Full Sail University, see Summer. And of course, Haifa, thank you for everything you do for NCS and our partnership here. Really good. I'm supposed to put up the sponsorship sign, which they've done for me. All right, as George said, we have lots of partners and sponsors on this slide for this event. You'll see them pop all over the place, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about each one of them. But I will say that two groups I want to kind of point out is Erin Baker still in the house? She had to go to another event, I think. So Erin Baker here. What about Neil? Is Neil? Where's Neil? Mr. Neil. He's out there. There he is in the back, Central Florida Tech Grove. If you haven't been over to the Central Florida Tech Grove in the last couple months, maybe you've been there a year ago or 2 years ago, you need to go back over there and talk to them. They have so many new projects going on. It's really exciting. We've kind of called the Central Florida Tech Grove our MS&T Works. If you're familiar with the works, there's 12 works in the Department of War, and CyberWorks, SoftWorks, AFWorks, SpaceWorks, of which we're having a grand opening and a welcome ceremony September 9th. SpaceWorks is now joining in Research Park. We're really excited to have them, and so we'll have a welcoming party and ribbon cutting September 9th. So it's great to have another space asset down here with Starcom and Space Force. So 10K. So if you were to run a 10K east, walk a 10K east, you run into the modeling simulation ecosystem in the Central Florida Research Park, right? Headquarters of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and Marine Corps. I'm preaching to the choir. 93% of you know what I'm talking about, but there's some students here and about 7% that don't. So it's the headquarters of all those commands, very important business, and we have been building training aids, devices, simulators, and simulators, what we call TADS, for the last 30, 40 years. The greatest training devices the warfighter's ever seen, and we acquire them right out of Research Park. So it's not far from Full Sail, and that's why this partnership is so exciting to us. So that's here in Central Florida. Let me talk about the ecosystem real quick in Florida. So in Florida, we have 21 bases that surround Florida, the best testing and training ranges for the Department of War. They're up in Pensacola. David Bragg's here from University of Florida somewhere, right? He runs the Reef and the FLAIR program up in Pensacola. They do amazing work with the Air Force Research Lab. We have Jacksonville, Tampa, the Space Coast, Avon Park, all these different bases, Homestead Air Force Base, Coast Guard bases. The entire ecosystem is about $102.7 billion that is invested into Florida for the Department of War. George and I know that because we work with Tallahassee. Every 2 years they do a study with the University of West Florida. This year that study will be done in Miami, down at the South Florida Defense Association. So we're excited to see that number go from $102 billion probably up to $110 billion. A lot of stuff going on in Florida when it comes to the Department of War. And so one of the other things that's really important is we have SOCOM, CENTCOM in Tampa, and SOUTHCOM down in Miami. If you saw what happened last year, June 21st, 2025, we extracted somebody from Venezuela. That was run by the FOST and SOUTHCOM with Special Operation Forces headquartered out of Tampa. So a very important mission. If you see what's going on in the Middle East, that's run by CENTCOM out in Tampa. You can see how intertwined we are in Florida with the Department of War. So, as part of that, I want you to know that the largest DoD conference that we do in Florida is run by the National Training Simulation Association, NTSA. And they do the largest Florida DoD, Department of War conference that's out at the Orange County Convention Center every first week after Thanksgiving. This is going to be our 60th year doing it. So a very important conference to us. Most of the people in this room know all about that. And Orange County Convention Center is a huge partner for us, third largest convention center in the country. Chicago #1, Las Vegas #2, and Orange County Convention Center is the third in the United States. So that's a very important conference. The second one is, next slide, please, if you could advance the slide. The next one is our big industry day that we run out at the Rosen Center, also run by the National Training Simulation Association, NTSA. So that is the second big conference for our industry. What we want to talk about right now is SpaceCom. SpaceCom is a pretty new event on our radar, but we think this is going to be huge for the modeling, simulation, and training community. So we brought in Tina from just a drive away of the Space Coast, and Robin flew in from Annapolis to talk to you for a couple minutes about SpaceCom. Next slide. Come on up, ladies. Next slide.
Hi, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. I did fly in today from Annapolis, Maryland, so thank you for having us. My name is Robin, and I'm the Business Development Executive for SpaceCom, actually Commercial Space Week. And I have a question for you. Who here knows what Commercial Space Week is? All right, I think I got about 25%. Who here has attended Commercial Space Week? Again, the same. Okay, so for those of you who are not aware of what we are an event that happens, and we are going to be January 11th through the 14th this year at the Orange County Convention Center. And we have 3 events under one roof. We've got SpaceCom, Space Mobility, and then we've got the GSA Spaceport Summit. So it is a collaborative event, and it is where you get the biggest bang for your buck in 1 week.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tina, and I am SpaceCom. I am the program chair for our event, and I just want to say that SpaceCom is where simulation meets real demand. We've got NASA, the DoD, or DOW if that's what they want to be now, prime contractors, spaceports, launch operators, and commercial space companies. They all attend to identify the capabilities that can move their programs forward. Modeling and simulation are really foundational for the entire space life cycle. But I don't have to tell you that because we're here, and as Neil mentioned, I'm from the Space Coast, so you have to be aware. I'm sure you might have heard that there's some rockets that fly about from time to time. But I do want to mention that the conference program is really closely aligned with simulation-intensive priorities, AI and autonomy, lunar operations, commercial space stations, launch cadence, workforce readiness, cybersecurity, robotics, and space traffic management are all part of the 2027 conversation. But enough about the program. Robin, tell us more.
Well, I was lucky enough to meet Neil last year at our last event in January, and I'm not going to lie, we hit it off. He brought me donuts. And we realized that we had a huge opportunity here. I've also met Ariane and so many other key players in the industry. So I feel like I'm a little new to the party, but I'm honored to be here. So what we're doing is we're creating a spatial intelligence pavilion at this event this year. We've created the space, we're designing it, now we're looking for our key players. So if you are a company that helps organizations test decisions, train people, visualize complex systems, or reduce technical and operational risk, you should be participating in our simulation pavilion. Tina and I are going to be outside. I'm my biggest fan. I love you. Tina and I are going to be outside at a table, and we're going to be able to answer any questions. We invite you to come out and talk to us. We'll have some more details, but everyone in this room should be a part of this amazing opportunity and be a part of this from the inception. And I want to thank you all for letting us be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina and Robin. They'll have a table outside if you want to talk to them more about getting involved with SpaceCom. And I also want to make sure everybody's aware of Ariane Finke, who is sitting right here. Ariane did a lot to introduce SpaceCom to the MS&T industry, and Ariane is also key with eMERGE Miami. If you have never been to eMERGE Miami, put it on your radar. You're going to see a lot of defense work down in Miami in the upcoming years. And there's another one, Space Power Conference. We'll leave that for another day. Okay, very good. A lot of, like as George said, lots of events. Now, my last job is to introduce the panel moderator. So I'm going to do that now. I bring to you a 30-plus year Air Force officer, a former commander, Central Florida Research Park of the Air Force Agency for Modeling and Simulation. Yeah. And a board member of the National Center for Simulation, and a man that can transition mission and vision into technology and operations. I give to you Rob Epstein, call sign Hammerhead.
That's awesome. I got it. I got the mic. All right. Can everybody hear me? I'm wired for sound, so let me invite the panel on up. You guys come take your seats up here, and I'm going to read a little bit about you guys. So I'm lucky enough to be the one to introduce these experts. Tonight's panel, we're going to be talking about from combat to cosmos to epic entertainment. Those three domains, you know, our panelists represent them today, and while those sound disconnected, they all have something in common. Modeling and simulation. No, really, guys, come on up. Come on up. Come on, don't be shy. All right, so whether you're training operators for space missions, defending critical infrastructure, testing entertainment attractions, or optimizing defense, the principle is the same. You build digital environments that let you test, validate, and iterate before real-world stakes come into play. You fail fast in simulation instead of in reality. You avoid the test and adjust cycle, and you move straight to operational certainty, right? These are the experts. I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up on these guys, and then we're going to let them all talk individually. Today's expert panel brings together 4 leaders who are on the cutting edge of this work. I've got Jack Norman, Anna Mentke, Justin Schwartz, and Kyle Binney. I'll briefly introduce each panelist, followed by a little brief presentation by each of them, and then we'll go ahead and have questions, trying to get a little dialogue between them. So with that being said, we're going to go in order here. So I'm going to introduce Jack. So Jack is the course director here at Full Sail University. Jack Norman is an information security executive and consultant with over 20 years of software development in information security and experience in the defense, public, and private sectors. In his role as the Chief Information Security Officer, Jack has supported about 24 acquisitions, an IPO, implemented multiple compliance projects, and architected numerous information security programs. As the course director here at Full Sail University, Jack's helping to develop the next generation of cybersecurity professionals while advancing cutting-edge simulation environments for cyber defense training. Let me flip my page. And demonstrates here the Full Sail University's IBM Cyber Defense Range powered by AWS and Cloud Range. For those of you who went on the tour, you probably got to see that today. Without any further ado, I present to you Jack Norman.
Thank you. I don't get intro music. Yeah, Jack Norman. Oh, wait. Oh, is this? Oh, all right. I don't actually have any slides. No, good. Thank you. This is all me. Yeah, my introduction's pretty easy. We've been doing a lot of simulation technology and figuring out how we can integrate into our educational programs so that we can enrich the experience that our students have here at Full Sail. When I got invited to come and talk at this presentation, I was excited to do so because I started my career in military simulation over there in Research Park about 25 years ago now. It's more than 20 years now. So as you can tell by the gray in my beard. But yeah, it's been It's been really rewarding to work and start in this space, both in cybersecurity and software engineering and military and simulation, and being able to bring in a lot of the technology that I helped really develop back early in my career here at Full Sail to our students. I'm super excited to be here and to talk about that today. With that, I won't go on too much more. We have an awesome video, as Full Sail does, going into kind of what we bring to the table from a cyber range perspective. Thank you.
For 45 years, Full Sail has been on the front end of technology, the evolution of it. Everything about this place is not just being in the present, but looking towards the future. The things that are trends in the industry that we see. For everything that is about emerging technologies, we package it in forms like Full Sail University IBM Cyber Defense Range.
We're always talking to industry experts, understanding where the technology is going, where the industry is going, paired with our experienced instructors who bring the industry knowledge, and then reverse engineer that into our curriculum. That's why it's very important for us to partner with IBM, AWS, and Cloud Range to create a space where our students get the hands-on experience, get to refine their skills, get to experience different scenarios, and be ready for that industry they're going into.
The students at Full Sail have the ability to take advantage of the latest technologies, the latest momentum, and the cybersecurity environment. AWS ensures continuous evolution through a scalable architecture that will allow the faculty to be able to bring in new exercises to support the students' outcomes.
Simulations in this space are paramount to provide students to replicate what is out there in the real world. They come together, they play different roles, which is very realistic when organizations get attacked and breached, to allow employers to find them very valuable in the industry.
There's a number of things that's driving the current demand for cybersecurity professionals. Number one, there's over 750,000 unfilled roles in the US. IBM truly values its partners, and it's through these partnerships that we're able to meet the demands that are growing across this country and across the world. What's exciting about working with Full Sail is Full Sail has a track record of collaborating with the private sector to bring the best for their students, and in turn, providing the best for us once they go into the workforce. And we're excited to bring some of those students to IBM and to other cybersecurity-focused companies so that they can be the next generation of cybersecurity professionals.
It is the creators of the technology that know best how it can be used to its greatest benefit across the face of any and all industry. So glad for our partners, IBM, AWS, Cloud Range, that they chose to stand with us on this. This is the really right place for us to be in launching this brand new lab at Full Sail.
Anything else? Yeah. All right. Our next panelist, Anna Metke, founder and CEO of Space Resource Technology. Space Resource Technology is recognized as the world's leading producer of high-fidelity regolith simulants, with over 400 tons delivered to customers in more than 50 countries worldwide. Their simulants are used globally to test hardware, validate ISRU technologies, prepare systems for real planetary environments before they ever leave Earth, and is literally recreating the lunar surface in physical environments, not as science fiction, but as practical training tools for engineers who need to operate in space today. Simulants aren't just for scientists anymore. They're for entertainment and learning as well. Anna.
Hey, everyone. So space is deep, dark, and mysterious, and kind of a nightmare for simulation, but we got to do it because we're going there. Space is not as comfortable as our nice bubble that we have here on Earth. The moon, for example, has no atmosphere. The temperatures are crazy high and crazy low for long periods of time. So when we send hardware, robotics, and electronics to the lunar surface, this becomes really difficult to survive. What we say is space is dirty, something that doesn't get a lot of attention unless you try to go to another planet. It's extremely dusty, and that dust is actually extremely hazardous too. So it's sharp, it's jagged, and it gets everywhere. It penetrates right through astronaut suits, and it destroys all kinds of robotics. But the problem is also the resource that we have there. So we know in lunar regolith it has water, it has oxygen, it has stuff we can use for fuel, it has metals that we can extract and use to build infrastructure, things like landing pads and fuel stations in space. And I hope you guys have all heard the moon is open for business. We're getting ready to build a lunar base. And we're sending 60 payloads to the moon next year to start getting started on this. So how do we prepare for that environment? How do we know that the tech that we send there is even going to work to begin with? That's what we do. We simulate the different environments from Moon, Mars, and asteroids to make sure that the tech that we do send over to those planets is actually going to work when it gets there. But it's challenging because we can't simulate it all at the same time. We can simulate the regolith, we can simulate certain vacuum conditions, we can simulate certain temperature conditions and lighting, but it's not all at the same time, the same way that we get it in space. When we do the testing on Earth, it tends to mislead us. Sometimes our tests seem like we're going to be successful, that we get really good results, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be 100% successful in space. So what can we do while we're here on Earth? And since we can test these different parameters, Kyle's going to talk a little bit more about Lunabotics, but here on the screen you see this giant rover. We developed that at NASA SwampWorks, and it can excavate hundreds of thousands of tons of lunar regolith. This is what's going to build our lunar base. We already have that, and it's getting ready to launch. We know how to do things like 3D print on the lunar surface, make concrete with lunar regolith. We know how to 3D print electronics using lunar regolith and extract metals to use them to build things like solar panels. So all of these tech and all of these different solutions we already have because we have access to simulating those environments in space. What becomes really difficult is actually simulating these environments digitally, because it requires a lot of computational power. Right now, our testing process is to design something, build a prototype, and test it to failure. But what if we could do that digitally hundreds of thousands of times before we even spend any money on a prototype? This is where we need the community to help come up with good solutions for this. And this is not just about exploration anymore. We are going to build a lunar base. We're talking about harnessing resources on the lunar surface and doing that with very expensive intellectual property. So this is also a matter of national security. So there's a lot of importance behind this. So let's do it.
Awesome. That's straight up cool. Our next panelist, Justin Schwartz. Justin is the Senior Director of Engineering and Safety at Universal Creative. Justin's been a key innovator and technology leader in the attractions industry for almost 20 years. His career started on iconic projects such as Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, very cool, and before advancing into leadership roles overseeing engineering and safety for experiences like Hogwarts Express and Volcano Bay. He was also part of the founding team for Epic Universe and developed Universal's original wand technology. Thank you for allowing me to buy one of those. Absolutely, my son does too. Which helped set a new standard for guest interactivity in theme parks. He builds digital twins of entire environment or entertainment attractions before a single rivet is driven, using full-scale physics-based models to validate that attractions work in simulation first, because you just can't shut down a major attraction to test it. So with that, I give you Justin.
All right, well, thank you so much. Wow. Well, before I get started, first, I thought I had a cool job, but Anna, I want to simulate the moon. That seems pretty awesome. Okay. All right, so my name's Justin, as I was introduced, and thank you for having me here. First, I've never been to Full Sail before. It's pretty incredible, so I want to definitely explore more here and meet more students. Yeah, for sure. I'll come see you after. So, so at Universal, we have had a pretty long history of simulation. Originally, simulation for us is really like guest-facing. So we would try to deliver, simulated experiences to our guests so they can experience, other worlds, other places, other environments. But as we've grown as an industry and as we've grown as a company too, we've really brought that level of simulation back into our engineering and to our work to actually, build and design our attractions. And so as the technology has grown, we've kind of leveraged that. And it's actually, I've had a really great career over the last 23 years now at Universal, actually seeing us do that. So like when we started when I started at Universal and I saw like the level of simulation that we had, it was very, very rudimentary. We were doing things like more for capacity modeling and using tools like Arena. I don't know if anyone's used that tool. It's an industrial engineering tool that kind of manages capacity and figures out how things move around in systems. And over time, we had kind of big visions of like, hey, is there a way that we could start actually, as our technology grew within our equipment, can we actually test that technology before we get it out in the field? As everybody knows, once you get something in the field, it's really expensive, really complicated to test it. And then once we deploy it to our guests, it's operational. It has to be running almost 24/7 a day between our maintenance crews and our guests and when we're in operation. So it's really important for us to have opportunities to kind of use and simulate this equipment kind of offline to try to figure out why certain things are working certain ways and how to improve the equipment as required. So the idea of simulation for us has become very, very important. And in the audience here is a guy named Howard. Howard is one of our kind of lead engineers on figuring out our simulation work. And he's really brought kind of the idea of bringing the concept of kind of realistic physics-based modeling into our pipeline. And so kind of the key for us, what really kind of opened up the door for simulation modeling kind of on the engineering side, was actually being able to simulate our attractions kind of virtually so that we can plug in the real equipment that we would use to actually run the equipment, like our PLCs, our computer processing, and be able to test them ahead of time. And one last thing before I pass it on, just for us, simulation's is also really special because we have a couple ways we do things. First, there's simulation for just development and help us like kind of design and push us in the right direction. But there's also for us, we like to use simulation, what we call for like virtual commissioning. So when we open an attraction at Universal, there's a whole suite of safety tests and requirements that we have to kind of prove to ourselves. And a lot of times you can't perform those until you actually build the real equipment, until simulation came to be. And so for us, that tool has really opened the door for us to allow to kind of streamline our schedules, test things ahead of time, and kind of get ahead of the curve on a lot of areas. So for us, simulation's really, it's crucial to the work we do. It's kind of embedded into everything we do today, and it's part of our business process going forward. So I'm really glad to be here. Looking forward to the great conversation, and thanks for having me.
All right, and the guy who had to get the furthest away from me, Kyle Binney. So he's a Chief Technology Officer at Transform XD. And Kyle is a seasoned technology sales leader, innovator, and problem solver with nearly 3 decades of experience, renowned for his blend of technical expertise and creativity in solving complex problems. Transform XD is an advisory-led, integration-driven firm that helps organizations modernize how they operate by aligning business strategy with the right technologies, systems, and data, spanning digital twins, system integration, reality capture, and smart infrastructure. He thinks about reality itself as the user interface and harnesses data from lunar, defense, and entertainment sources to inform better simulations that meet exacting tolerances. With that being said, Kyle.
Well, thank you for the introduction. If everyone doesn't mind, I'm just going to stay seated. I'm a tall guy. You see me there. So thanks to MS&T Connect for having us for Full Sail, for NCS and Neil for inviting me to be on this panel. It's really smart people, really exciting group to be with. So I'm very appreciative to be here. I had this. There's a lot to unpack here, right? So I have been in this community for quite a while. I've gone to a lot of ITSECs. I've seen simulation kind of start to evolve in the short period of time that I've been involved. And my group and I came up with this kind of concept that reality is the user interface, right? And we focus on this idea that we call reality capture, and this is using tools like LiDAR and photogrammetry to capture reality as we see it today, and that's coupled with high-resolution photography and getting really accurate data. And when I talked to Neil about this opportunity to be on this panel, and he explained that it was, multi-domain with space and defense and entertainment, it really got me thinking about the cross-connect, which is really the data that is the same problem that we all face in digitizing data and making sense of that data and preparing it for the future of AI. So I'm going to blow through a couple of slides here for you and try to give you a little bit of insight into what we do. So from reality to interface, right, there's this, it's scan, register, reconstruct, and deploy. So we're going to go out into the field and we're going to use these really advanced tools to capture anywhere from sub-millimeter to millimeter accuracy. And we're going to register that data and start to make sense of it. We're going to use real-world control to try to grab a hold of that data and bring it into regular coordinate systems that surveyors might use or any other geospatial professional. And then we're going to do things with that data. We're going to recreate it. We're going to turn it into mesh objects. We're going to use Gaussian splats, with maybe some of the people in this audience are familiar with now. And that's going to start to allow us to bring sense to the data. And then we're going to deploy it in game engines and simulation. And that's when reality really starts to become the interface. And we're going to touch on how it might touch Justin's domain or Anna's, Jack's even later on. So here's a brief example of what we did here, and I just wanted to use this because this is a simulation example. So we were entertained by a client to create a simulation of a tire surface interaction, right? So this is going to be a racetrack where we went out and scanned the track, made multiple accuracy models, for lack of a better term. So a physics model for the tire surface interaction, a low poly model for the visual part, and then we just expanded from there on what we can do with the data. So ultimately, mobile LiDAR, which is a vehicle-mounted system that goes around the track and captures orthophotography and LiDAR of the track surface itself. And then we used some geospatial data that was publicly available for the surround, and then used a great Central Florida contracting partner of ours named FS Studios to create a really realistic model of it. And then we put that into a simulation suite produced by a Tecmo. And just thought we'd give you guys a quick look at that. So what you're seeing here is the actual simulation, right? So you're going to highlight in the corner of the screen. So this is the high fidelity physics model that's running in the background. So that's really where the tire surface interaction is happening. And then, as you can see, the driver is in a piece of hardware that's really letting him feel every bump and a crack in the pavement. And then we use that surround to then create, those landmarks that the driver might see, right? So this is a fully 3D ready to be ingested into simulation platform in a highly realistic manner while still maintaining that physics model that's going to allow the tire to wear and the vehicle to experience the same stressors that it would in an actual race. And so one foundation, three domains, right? So as Anna mentioned, I got involved with the Lunabotics Challenge at UCF, which is really exciting. If you're not familiar with Lunabotics, I would encourage you to see what's going on at the XLith lab. Anna's lunar Regulus simulant is there in mass. I think it's a 10 by 10 by 2 meter bin, roughly. And college teams come from all over the world and across the country to compete on how their rover can perform in this space. And we use LiDAR to produce near real-time measurements of the amount of regolith that they can move. So it's really exciting. In the space domain, obviously defense, it's obvious that the LVC environments are incredibly beneficial to the warfighter. And so you can get real terrain maps, highly detailed maps that might, increase operational success. And LiDAR is moving off the ground and off of drones and into space. So we'll soon be mapping the world from space as well. And as Justin touched on with entertainment, everything they're doing now is being captured with LiDAR, photogrammetry, and other means and methods. And that's in construction and then in operation. So I guess the important part to understand here is that when we're talking about these physical representations, these digital representations of the physical reality, is that, it's only as good as the scan data that built it, right? So if we're going to talk more about accuracy and tolerances and things of that nature, but ultimately the geometry that we scan, gives us the object. And then as we start to add more data to that in context, starts to give it meaning. So we're really excited about this idea in simulation of reality being the user interface for which we will forward efforts in space and in defense and entertainment. There we have it.
All right, let's ask some questions of these guys. Each of these panelists face the same fundamental challenge, the way I see it. Do you know your simulation? How do you know your simulation is good enough? How do you know it worked? So let me kind of throw in a couple of questions. Let me start with the human element. All of you are training humans or validating human-machine systems through simulation. But there's a question that haunts every simulation practitioner of, does training in the simulation environment actually behave the same in reality? Jack, let me start with you with the cyber students. Do they perform differently after training in your cloud range? Anna, do the engineers who train with the simulants that you're producing actually perform better in actual space operations? How do you measure the transfer from simulation to reality? And I'll pose that really with the two of you, but it's open to the entire audience or to the entire group.
Sure. So we just opened the cyber range, so as far as how they're going to perform out in the real world, we're still hoping that it will be amazing. But from what I've seen as a practitioner that's been doing this for a lot of years, managed a lot of security operations teams, which is what our cyber range is really made to emulate. The biggest things we're looking for is how much does what we can do and put with regards to stress on students in the cyber range that mimics what we see out in the real world. And really it comes down to a couple different things. One is putting them into a situation where they're being bombarded with a lot of information that they need to synthesize at very short intervals and make decisions on it quickly. So simulating that environment by the people that are in there, the various injects we can have from a simulation standpoint. The other part is the tools. This has been an area that has been a challenge for a long time, was being able to get the enterprise-grade tools that I use and my team uses on a day-to-day basis to do security operations or to work blue team or red team ops, and be able to bring that into an educational format. And this is the first lab I've seen where we're actually able to do that. And that, I think, is a huge testament with regards to being able to actually mimic what people out in the real world do from a tool perspective. And then really it's trying to take what we've seen out in the real world when it comes to doing incident response and translate that into an environment where the same type of attacks can be perpetrated or the same type of defenses can be mounted against those attacks without actually breaking things like taking down networks and defacing websites and doing all of that. So doing that in a closed environment, really trying to mimic the stress and really trying to mirror the tools, and then overlaying that with faculty like myself and a lot of my colleagues that do this on a day-to-day basis in the real world, being able to say, yes, I went through a scenario yesterday in my organization and I was able to mirror that exact thing here in a simulated range.
And also kind of bringing in from the student perspective, Kyle and I get to see all these students who compete in Lunabotics where they have to design and build a lunar rover and test it in simulated lunar regolith. And a lot of these kids who are putting these rovers together, they don't have lunar regolith test beds at their universities. So a lot of them, what they do is they test their rovers in the volleyball beach sand courts, and they'll get into the regolith test bed, and within 5 seconds, their wheels just shear right off. And they're like, I don't know what happened. It worked just fine in the volleyball court. So, but I will say that those students who get to have those experiences get to make way better employees for the lunar hardware developer companies, because there is no learn how to go to the moon school. So we kind of have to learn in these simulated environments, and it does help us be more successful in terms of the tech that we build.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll be somewhat of the antagonist here. I think there is, we have to be careful not to confuse the immersion part with the effectiveness of the simulation, right? Because simulations can train bad behavior, right? So the real question is whether the cues and the constraints and the consequences in the real environment are represented accurately, in the simulation, and whether that all matches up, right? So I think there's definitely an opportunity to change behavior in simulation, right? And then I guess the real metric will be if performance improves outside of the simulation outside of the red-blue team, right? Are they able to? Do you see an increased performance after the simulations? And I guess maybe Justin, I'd be curious because you said you guys are simulating a lot. Are you catching those, ride build conflicts, and what kind of things are you catching in simulation that you otherwise might not catch in the field without it?
I mean, ultimately, we always catch it in the field. It's just catching the field is late, and it's expensive to make major hardware changes and adjustments and things later on. And when you're we're Universal, I always tell people, at heart we're a movie studio, so the show must go on. We have dates we got to hit, we got deadlines patrons have booked their vacations, and so our attractions have to open on time. So it's really important that when we don't have those challenges when we get to the field. So it's really important to kind of clean those up ahead of time. I want to kind of add on to what you were saying, because I think it is pretty important. One thing you mentioned about, which is, there's definitely, we do a lot of simulation around the system, making sure the system works well. But there's definitely the human element, and actually what Full Sail's doing with the cyber security room is really interesting, because, for us, we've definitely dabbled, and we definitely train our staff on how to interact, but really, even the great simulation, at least the digital simulation, really has to accommodate like all the variables. And at Universal, we have guests, and human variable is one of the biggest. And when you're a ride operator, you're a maintenance technician, or you're trying to work on recovering a ride or doing something, you don't know what the guest is going to do. And it's easy to train on a nominal situation where everything kind of goes as planned per the scenario. But when there's a guest involved who can kind of really throw a monkey wrench into the plan, it becomes a different situation. And again, all the best training, all the best simulation that you do, you really got to incorporate that. So figuring out ways to kind of really think about that variability, and that is important to us. And so for us, that's one of the things we do, is we do a lot of statistical work. We do a lot of looking at different things that could happen, and then balance that against the simulations that we do. So that's all kind of driven as part of our plans when we're thinking about simulation.
Cool. And this plays into my old Air Force days, right? Standards, fidelity, and tolerance. In our pre-brief, Kyle, you said something that stuck in my brain, which is you cannot drop below a level of tolerance, which I found really a fascinating statement, but because it stuck with me. Because it suggests that there is a minimum bar, but not necessarily a requirement to simulate everything. So the question, how do you determine across these very different domains, defense, space, entertainment, where's the tolerance line actually lie? And is it different by domain?
Short answer is yes. It's always different, and I'm going to take the kind of the cop-out response here, which is it's all requirements driven, right? So we're gonna thank you to everyone in the simulation crowd. You know where we're at. So, I think that the fidelity should never be maximized unless the simulation requires it, right? I think we want simulations that support the decision that we're trying to make. So, although it may be my desire to catch sub-millimeter accuracy of absolutely everything in the environment, it's, accuracy without a use case is expensive, right? So if we have a very thoughtful approach to the outcome that we're trying to achieve and the data requirement inside of there, then, I think it makes it a little bit more manageable. If in a cinematic fly-through, 5 inches of variance is completely acceptable. In ride clearance, millimeters matter, right? So I think the tolerance is ultimately a byproduct of the consequence of being wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also depends on what as you mentioned, requirements, but what the kind of phase or what you're actually trying to simulate is. So, there's so many realms of simulation that you're looking at. So if you're doing capacity studies, if you're doing some sort of specific looking at a control system, how it's interacting with logic, the simulation there maybe doesn't have to be as refined as something where you're looking at the pure physics of something. You're trying to really understand things were associated with aerodynamics or other areas. So you balance that, and it's all cost and time associated. So you want to look at what you're trying to what types of risks you're trying to reduce early, and decide what those requirements are, and then apply it to it. So it's really, to me, it's really phase dependent. And we the approach that we take is, at the onset of a program, we sit down with our engineering teams, we sit down with our suppliers and our vendors, and we kind of talk through what the areas we think we want to simulate are. Like, what are the key spaces that we think we need to reduce risk on? And then it depends on the project. If we have a lot of experience with a piece of equipment, we may decide, this attraction, it's the third time we've done it, we have a lot of experience with it, maybe we'll do a little bit less simulation this time up front. Or maybe we have the simulation from the past that we can kind of reuse. But you mentioned, I think, early on, which was like, how do you validate that your simulation's right? And so that's one of the big things for us, because a lot of times, we can't actually validate our equipment until it's actually running. And then there's a revalidation of the simulation. But when we build an attraction for like the second or third time, we have the opportunity to kind of use that data right up front. So it really gives us a really good validation of that system prior to going into using it. And so for us at that point, then we have a really good level. We can feel like the tolerance levels are really good, and we can bring more data into the system than what we would have on kind of a first round a simulation of a system that hasn't been built before.
So, Anna, I'd be curious on the same question. We've sent people to the moon. We've taken samples back. How is what you're doing being validated by that knowledge that we've already accumulated?
Yeah, so pretty much everything that we do is currently dependent on the samples that we brought back from the Apollo missions or any kind of surveying data that we have. But so much of the lunar environment is still unpredictable and uncertain for us. So, our tolerance margins are quite crazy in the space industry, and we're quite desperate to simulate as well as we can anytime we can do it. But I will say that, with all of the lunar missions coming up, the industry is going to get thrown for a loop, because whatever simulation models we do have, we're going to have to completely revamp with all the new data that we get. So it's about to get real exciting.
Let me ask some risk management and early iteration questions. Justin, your approach moves from developmental testing to sort of operational testing is the way I kind of defined it in my brain. Finding problems early through simulation rather than through later breakdowns. Jack, you're doing something similar with the cybersecurity, training teams in protected environments so the failure doesn't compromise real systems. Kyle, Anna, how does iteration and failure and simulation change the risk calculus in the domains that you're working? What's the return on investment on getting it right versus discovering the problems later?
Anna, do you want the first shot at that? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the risks are quite high for us, and I think the biggest risk is the time that we put into the payloads that we do send up there. But, trying to make it perfect is also why we haven't been back to the moon in 50 years. So, in my opinion, test what you can, but also let's just go and do it and stop wasting time, because we can simulate what we can up here, but also we're going to learn a lot more about the lunar environment and make our simulation models a lot better the more that we actually do up there.
Well, look, I'll add that, and to anyone in this room that I've ever put a proposal in front of, you'll understand this statement. Like, technology doesn't have an ROI, right? Now, outcomes do. So I think we have to be, the ROI ultimately in these type of projects comes from, as Justin mentioned, moving discovery upstream. So if we can, in every issue we find in simulation that can avoid, mobilizing people or, fabricating something or deploying a product or shutting down an attraction, right? Every dollar we save there is much cheaper in simulation than it is in the real world. So I think the ROI is certainly in the discovery, which simulation plays a major part in.
All right, let me jump into this then. The cost of being too prescriptive. So Justin, I knew your team looked at standards interface models and decided they weren't prescriptive enough, or actually too prescriptive in the wrong ways. You said that forcing standardization at the vendor level can drive a risk rather than reduce it when we were talking originally. But Jack, you're essentially building the standards for the cyber range, correct? So how do you balance the need for industry standards with the flexibility to let experts use proven off-the-shelf solutions? Where should you be prescriptive? Where should you back off? And I kind of open that to the crowd.
Yeah, so you want to be prescriptive insofar that it's representative of what's actually happening in the real world. And I kind of look at it in two different ways, because ours is a bit of a unique way of simulating compared to all the cool ways that these guys get to simulate stuff. We have the data of what it looked like when something happened in the real world. We can get packet captures from networks. We can get, we can read the PR stories. There's a whole lot of geopolitics that can be weaved into scenarios. That's part of it. So when it comes to standards, I would almost say to take a step back to tolerance, because I think tolerance is somewhere that's unique to us with regards to our cyber range, because tolerance is a tool from an educational standpoint when it comes to the cyber range. Like, you've got attackers that maybe we affectionately call script kiddies. They're sitting in somebody's basement and they've grabbed some tools off the internet, and they're really noisy when they're banging on your network and banging on your assets in your environment. And the tolerance of that is really sloppy, and it's meant to be. So there's a lot more signs that something is happening to your stuff. And then you've got nation-state actors that operate in a really, really stealthily manner. So the tolerance there is really slight. You might only see one log that shows that something wonky happened. If you don't catch it, then you won't know that something's even going on in your network. So I cover that for tolerance. But yeah, I think when it comes to the standards, is it representative, or is the outcome of this scenario going to be something where the students come away with a better ability to make decisions faster, a better idea of how to synthesize the various types of data that they're getting bombarded with, into some sort of decision? And that's kind of where our standards need to focus.
Yeah, so on standards, I mean, I'm a big believer in standards. I think it's a really important piece to this. And, I think as the simulation space, at least as we apply it, especially on the digital twin side, is growing and more standards are getting developed kind of industry-wide, that's really helpful to us. I think where I was going on our pre-talk was a little bit about, forcing our standards, meaning our universal standards, specifically around what we've developed to help support the simulation against some of our vendors. And that's where there's a big challenge, because there's a lot of suppliers, vendors out there that have their own approach to things. And when you're trying to balance cost and schedule and simulation all at the same time, you really want to figure out how we manage that. And you can add extra risk to a program by saying, okay, we want to use your piece of equipment that maybe you have a simulator, you have a methodology of testing this kind of in the factory or via simulation ahead of time, yet we now need you to change it to kind of support the systems that we're developing or that we'd like you to kind of integrate with. And that introduces new risks, because associated with that is new connections, new ways that they have to communicate, and that could cause other challenges with the system, or introduce new failures that maybe weren't anticipated that are just involved with the simulation itself. And you don't want to spend time fixing simulation failures that aren't real world failures. So you want to make sure those are kind of isolated between the two. One thing that we have done, which I think is a really big kind of industry innovation, and we've spent a lot of time, is kind of building like middleware to allow the vendors to kind of support their normal means and methods. And we can then kind of ingest that stuff into our system, which really is really nice. So that allows us to, again, use the real hardware, not just use their simulation tools, but use what they're building that we're going to use out in the for our attractions, in our virtual simulated environment. And then, of course, then we have to convince our suppliers and our vendors to kind of use the equipment that we've developed for them, so they can do their simulation on that. And a lot of times, that's new to them. I mean, the amusement industry, the idea of digital twins, it's very new to us. Like, we're getting into it. Again, as I said before, we're really good at doing guest-facing simulation, guest-facing creation, but kind of on the development side, that's a pretty new area. It's only in the last 5-6 years that we've really accelerated kind of the development on that. But what's really great is, as the simulation industry and digital twin industry is expanding and becoming more rugged and mature, those standards then can now be applied to us, and we'll be able to use them. So that'll really help accelerate the work that we do from a simulation side.
Yeah, there's an expression I love to use on standardization, which is like, standardize the handshake, not the hands. right? So, hands can all be different, but we all shake hands the same way.
That's a good way of putting it. I'm getting prompted to open questions up to the audience, so why don't we do this? Do we have any questions from the audience for this esteemed panel? Who's going to be the first non-shy person? Good. Somebody in the back there.
How you doing, guys? Thank you for all your great inputs. Chuck Reynolds with TSI. How do you guys go into other industries that are more mature than all of your industries and develop and get the best practices from those industries and apply them to yours? And have you thought about or done any of that sort of thing?
So I'll just say for us, from an entertainment side, that is our business model. I was told when I first started at Universal, like, if you ever reinvent the wheel, like, you're going to be fired, because it's really important that there's so much development, especially in the aerospace, military space, and simulation space, that's already kind of developed the things we want in a different way. Our view is always to be a little bit parasitic to that and find out, like, okay, what are the innovations that are coming out of that space? How do we leverage that? What standards are they utilizing? And so if you go back and you actually look at a lot of the amusement park standards, so we're in the amusement park here in the United States, in Florida, we use a ASTM standard, committee F24, and all of those standards, all of those requirements were all based off of other standards, other industries, and we kind of brought them in and kind of modified them to work for us at some point. So it was always from that. So from our world we're constantly doing that. That is like one of my first jobs, when I started in the industry, was literally just researching what others were doing out in industry, not in our space, but just in general, industry, and trying to pull those technologies in. And many of our innovations that you see at our parks were really, first created or with companies that were doing kind of other industries, especially in the military and aerospace space.
Hello. My question is for Justin. So if anybody else is a big Halloween Horror Nights fan, you know that obviously that kind of completely changes the flow of the park. So I'm curious, you guys have digital twins that are set up for normal, quote, normal, as you explained earlier, it's never normal, kind of flow. I'm curious, when you have events like that are only a couple months a year, how do you adjust your, simulations, your predictions, for something that's so limited?
Oh yeah. So we have, it's first the Halloween event for the it's actually our first previews. I think is next week for us from a team member side. Like, we're starting this really soon. Like, so it's a big deal for us, the whole idea of Halloween. And so there's a giant business associated with that. And we've actually we have a huge business analytics team and industrial engineering team that really focuses on all of that in very specific detail and models our attendance levels, our planning of how we move people around the park, where places are going to go, where we're going to place, dining options, drink options, merchandise options, for those temporary events. So it is, I would say this, in our early years when we first started these things, it's probably a little bit more seat of the pants, kind of figuring out as we were going along. And now it is a very scientific, tested solution. Everything you see out there is very well planned and very well organized and modeled via our teams, and we do a lot now. We've from a pricing perspective, from a ticket sales perspective, when we release the tickets, all of that is well simulated and modeled, and then produced to deliver the most optimal outcomes for us. So it is absolutely like part of our plans to make sure that we ensure that really no event or no action that happens out there isn't pre-modeled. And it's actually, for us on the development side, especially if you've been there a long time, we see it now. Like, we want to do something pretty quickly. We're like, hey, let's just go ahead and do this. They're like, no, we got to get the team out there. Let's make sure we model it. Let's make sure it's right. So all of that gets pre-modeled and checked. And then of course, we get validated and tested against it. So now we have a benchmark to actually test against, which also was something that's kind of not it's not very new, but in kind of industry standards, it's pretty new for the industry. So.
Real quick, I want to add that you mentioned it, Justin. I just want to touch on it for the entire group, which is with AI on the horizon, we have to come to terms with this idea of measured truth, modeled truth, and inferred truth, right? Because your machines are going to have to be able to differentiate between those levels of truth when they're starting to reason on all these fascinating topics that we're all going to reason on.
One more question.
All right. Hopefully I don't make it too long for you guys, but this is a question for all four of you. To expand on Abby's question and what Kyle just said, how is artificial intelligence being applied? And each of you is in such a different industry. I think it's going to be really interesting to hear from all four of them. How is artificial intelligence being applied to the simulations that you guys are creating now? And what are you doing to stay ahead of those now generational leaps of technology that we're seeing, months apart instead of years apart?
Yeah, so from the cybersecurity front, the attacks aren't very much different. They're just coming a lot faster. So from a simulation standpoint, it's being able to identify the new novel types of attacks and be able to accurately represent them really quickly, and then really increase the intensity and the op tempo of the students to be able to say, you got to make a decision faster. Because if you look at the recent story where OpenAI's model escaped in a hacked Hugging Face, I know one of the guys that was working on some of the incident response for that event, and he was like, the amount of things that got done by an AI attack agent in hours was nuts. So there was a lot of signature, but there was a long, windy, weavy path, and that's really what's causing the big change in cybersecurity. Is the attacks aren't necessarily different. It's just been industrialized. It's happening at scale, and it's happening uber fast.
For us, it's making simulation more accessible because there's a lot of work to be done in terms of simulation in our industry, especially like I mentioned, there's still so many unknown variables. But it allows us to kind of understand and brush through the data that we do have a lot better. And it allows a lot more people to have access to those databases and create their own simulation models. We see a lot of different universities doing a lot of DEM work, which is helping us in the information that they publish, but about their findings helps the industry at large. So that's a huge point that's been helping us out a lot.
Yeah, I think for us, and Ali, you'll appreciate this, I think when you talk about LiDAR and photogrammetry, AI is helping with something that Justin can probably really appreciate, which is this idea. I could go into one of Justin's facilities and we could scan, and then we could leverage AI for object segmentation and classification, right? So it's one thing to go capture a scene with geometry. It's another thing to give that scene context and meaning by being able to segment those individual items and then classify them together. And that's something that really, when it comes to the capture side of our business, that's really where AI has propelled us forward considerably in that domain.
All right, let me wrap this up by saying we've got 4 experts here who work in different industries, but you're all really betting you can predict the future or prepare for real-world outcomes using simulation. I really appreciate you guys being here today and sharing your expertise with us. Let's give them a big round of applause.
All right, thank you, everybody. Before I get to thanking the panel, there's a couple of other teams I need to thank. One is Capital Communications for organizing all of this and all of the graphics. And also our NCS team sitting in the back there that made sure that everything ran smoothly. So thank all of them. And there is a custom, and for those of you that don't work in the defense industry, there's a custom that has been around for a long time, and they're called challenge coins. NCS, we've been around for 32 years, and it took us 31 and a half years to get our own challenge coin. It's a two-sided coin. On one side is the NCS logo, and on the other side is our Starbase logo for all our STEM education. So in appreciation for your efforts here tonight, I'd like to present each one of you a challenge coin that you can display in your office somewhere proudly. Rob, I'll start with you because you've probably got 150 of these. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Take it. Anna, thank you so much. Appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming from Universal. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. With that, if you notice, it's called MS&T Connect. So now it's time to connect. I won't talk anymore. Have a great evening. Thank you. Can you turn me back on? I just want to thank Janet for organizing being our chair for this panel, as well as Tim James for your input. Thank you both.